Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, students. This is a Nayari lesson, and I believe that you're okay wherever you are. So I believe that you're okay, and we are ready to commence. So last time, remember, I was teaching you about sources of Sharia. That we are dealing with sources, Islamic sources of Sharia. We had not started the topic yet. We were about to start it last time, but because of hitches and glitches here, then there was a problem. But probably today we'll probably continue with that particular area. So remember last IRE lesson I taught you on sources of Islamic Sharia. We started saying that Quran is the main source of Islamic Sharia. It is the primary source of Islamic Sharia, through which all the other sources are derived from. And then we had a look at hadith or sunnah. We said that sunnah or hadith, these are the primary sources of sharia, quran and hadith. Then we are going to look at secondary sources of islamic sharia today, and we are going to look at ijma and qiyas. I'll give you ijma examples there, and I'll explain the meaning of ijma, and then after that I'll go to qiyas, giving examples there, few examples, but there are other examples in your textbooks and in your notes. I believe that the form threes, wherever you are, maybe this or whatever I'm lecturing to you today, maybe some of you are ahead of me, but there is no problem. We shall continue like that. So we talked about Quran, we exhausted about Quran, and we gave out reasons why Quran is considered as the main source of Islamic Sharia, and exhausted on Hadith, and we looked at reasons why hadith is considered as another source of Islamic Sharia just after Quran, as primary source of Islamic Sharia. Now today we are going to look at secondary sources of Islamic Sharia, and I'm going to start with ijma. The word ijma comes from Arabic word which has a connotation of ajma, which means to assemble or to gather or to collect. So ijma means consensus in English, and it comes from the word ajma, which means to agree upon, okay, to agree upon something. For example, if two Muslim scholars sit down to agree upon something on an issue pertaining Islamic Sharia, then that is going to be considered as ijma. So it means to agree upon. It literally means to come together or to assemble or collect. It's the method of coming together or collecting. So this process of ijma involves bringing together different materials or information. That is the literal meaning of the word ijma. Now we go to look at the technical meaning of it. Form 3, boys and girls, you need to understand this, that this particular topic is a bit technical and it needs much concentration and much concentration so that you can be able to understand it, because if it is not well understood, then these particular terms can bring about problems of understanding and problems of comprehension. So you need to understand them in advance. So the technical meaning of ijma, simply means the unanimous agreement or consensus or opinion of various Muslim scholars, So remember, it is Muslim scholars. Any matter pertaining Islam, any religious issues, if Muslim scholars sit down to discuss, to give legal rulings on these particular matters, then this one is considered as ijma. Ijma was mostly seen during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during the time of the Sahabas, during the time of the Tabi'un and the Tabi'uns. These particular noble people, they would sit down and discuss issues concerning Islamic Sharia, and that would be considered, and they would give rulings on that, and these would be considered as ijma. Okay, so technical meaning, it is simply means the unanimous agreement or the consensus of opinion or views of various Muslim scholars who are also known as mujtahidun. We are going to look at a mujtahid in singular form, and the plural is a mujtahid, is mujtahidun. These are Arabic terms. We are going to explain much on the meaning of mujtahid and mujtahidun so that you need to understand much about that. So these are coming together of Muslim scholars once they come together to discuss matters concerning the religion of Islam, then and they give rulings on those particular matters, then it is known as ijma. For example, I'm going to give you examples of ijma. For example, examples of ijma that happened during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even during the time when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed on and the Sahabas were left. Number one is the adhan, okay, the adhan, the subhi adhan. That was not, it was a unanimous agreement. And then we also look at when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam left, then there was this compilation of Quran, standardization and compilation of Quran was also known and was also done under ijma. So these are few examples. There are other examples which you need to understand, but these are few examples. There are very many examples, several examples to give, but these are two examples which can make you understand the meaning of ijma and how ijma was applied during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I said standardization and compilation of the Holy Quran was under ijma. The adhan, the subh adhan was the second, the call for prayers of Jum'ah was also under ijma. The second one was under ijma. So technically, I said that these are issues concerning Islamic Sharia. Once they are discussed by Muslim scholars, then and they make legal rulings, then you'll be able to understand that these particular legal rulings are going to be considered as ijma. So once these legal rulings are made by the Muslim scholars, they should be under the shade of Quran. They should be under the shade of Quran. If any legal ruling is going to be discussed, is going to be agreed upon by the Muslim scholars, and it is not in the shade of Quran, then it is not considered as ijma, because it should be under the shade of Quran. Now we are going to look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Surah An-Nisa. What is Allah saying in Surah An-Nisa? This is chapter 4, verse 59. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying concerning this particular ijma? It has been, Allah has talked about it in ijma. Allah has talked about it, but not in a direct way or in a direct form. It is in a verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I'll probably quote that particular verse directly from the Holy Quran so that you understand the meaning of that. Okay? Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Surah An-Nisa, this is verse 59, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا. Now I'm going to get the quotation. I'll directly go to the quotation where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا All who you believe, obey Allah and obey the Prophet. Wa ulil amri minkum, and those who are in authority, who have authority over you. Those who have authority over you are the Muslim scholars, are the Sahabas, those the tabi'uns, those who are in authority in matters of Sharia, in matters concerning Islam. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to obey them, meaning that in anything that in any way or in any way that they come up, if they come up with a legal ruling, because Muslim scholars cannot sit down for matters which are irrelevant, to come up with legal rulings which are not in the shade of Islam. The Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. And my quotation is wa ulil amri minkum, meaning that those who are or have authority over you, we need to obey them. Okay, we need to obey them. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Okay, so that is all about the Islamic Sharia as ijma. And there is a verse for that. And then I said that is Surah An-Nisa, verse 59, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul ila akhir al-ayah. So we are going to look at this. We go to another category of the sources of Islamic Sharia. I said I started with ijma. I explained about ijma. I gave 2 examples. I gave a verse concerning ijma. There is also another verse that you look at on your own. Probably this is still Surah An-Nisa, verse 83. Surah An-Nisa, verse 83, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about that. So you'll check that on your own during your own free time. But I would want you to dwell upon that particular verse of chapter 4, verse 59. You'll get to understand much about that. Now we go to a category number 2, Roman 2 of the secondary sources of Islamic Sharia. We look at qiyas. Okay, qiyas simply means analogical deductions. Analogical deductions. I believe that you have the notes. You'll probably, as I lecture, you'll go through the notes again so that you read and understand them, and then you understand them well. So these are deductions. What is a deduction? A deduction in anything that is good coming in the past, in the mind of a person. So to deduce is to think of something that is good, something that is applicable by Sharia, something that is applicable by the law, that it is not going to affect you, is not going to infringe your law, is not going to infringe the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is also not going to infringe the laws of others. Then that is analogical, it is known as qiyas, and then you make a legal ruling on that. So remember, rules of qiyas are not found in the Holy Quran, and they are not there in the Sunnah, nor are they in Hadith. So rules of qiyas are not in Quran, but they should be done in the shade of Quran. Yet they are not there. They should be done in the shade of Quran or in the light of Quran. But they are not actually there. So these are analogical deductions and rules of application of qiyas. How do we apply qiyas? Number 1, any qiyas ruling that must be made, then it should have the following rules. Number 1, the rules of qiyas should not be found in Quran, Hadith, or Ijma. That is number 1. Rules of qiyas should not be found in the Quran or in the Hadith or Ijma. They are not in the Quran, they are not in the Hadith, and they are not in Ijma. That is number 1. Number 2, the person engaging in qiyas, the person who is giving the rulings of qiyas should be a mujtahid, should be a mujtahid. Now, who is a mujtahid? I'll probably continue explaining more about mujtahid after my explanation to the rules of application of qiyas, so that you understand who is a mujtahid, who are the mujtahidun, so that you can comprehend well. So the person who is engaging in qiyas should be a mujtahid. That is ruling number two. Ruling number two. This is rule number two. The person must be a mujtahid. Number three, qiyas must be reasoned out well and conform to the teachings of Quran. If any ruling of qiyas is not reasoned out well and it is not conforming to the shade of Quran, then it is going to be rendered useless. It is not going to be rendered as a legal ruling. It is not going to be rendered as one of the sources of Islamic Sharia. It is going to be null and void because it is not conforming to the teachings of Quran. Number four, it must be applicable to relevant situation. Any ruling of qiyas should be applicable. If you are bringing a ruling of qiyas and it is not applicable, meaning that it is not going according to the shade of Quran, it is not going according to the light of Quran or the shade of Quran or hadith, then it is not going to be acceptable. Remember, these are rulings which are not found in the Holy Quran. They are not found in the hadith. They are also not found in ijma. Now we are going to look at ijtihad. So, and then I go explaining the meaning of mujtahid and mujtahidun, because mujtahid and mujtahidun, they come from a word ijtahada. Ijtahada in Arabic, those who are studying Arabic, you'll get to understand the meaning of ijtihad is to strive or struggle. Yeah, so if you struggle and you strive, then you are a mujtahid. But you're not striving to bring food on the table, or maybe striving for worldly affairs. You are striving for the matters of Islam. So you cannot be a mujtahid if you are striving in other things which are not pertaining they are not pertaining the religion of Islam. We cannot call you. We cannot consider you to be a mujtahid because you are striving in other things, in worldly affairs and so on and so forth. For you to be a mujtahid, you must be someone who is striving, who is struggling to bring forth certain activities concerning Islam. So it comes from the verb ijtihad. Ijtihad. I'm explaining the word ijtihad, and I say that it comes from the word ijtihad, which means to strive, to struggle, or to employ effort in performing certain activities. Technically, that is the literal meaning of the word ijtihad. Now we look at the person who is doing this is known as mujtahid in singular form, and the plural is known as mujtahidun. So mujtahid is one, mujtahidun, this is the plural. So the technical meaning of ijtihad, this is the process of bringing about legal decisions via in the interpretations of the legal source of Sharia. This is independent interpretations. Okay, we look at the qualities of a mujtahid. Qualities of a mujtahid. Number one, who is a mujtahid? I've already explained the meaning of the word mujtahid. Is a person who is struggling, is a person who is striving to perform religious activities or certain activities which are pertaining to the Islamic religion. So a mujtahid, any mujtahid must have qualities. Should be having the following qualities for you to be a mujtahid. Then you need to be, number one, you must have a mastery of Arabic language. You cannot be a mujtahid and you do not know any language, as far as you do not know anything as far as Arabic is concerned. So for you to be a mujtahid, first of all, you need to understand Arabic, because you are dealing with religious issues. You are dealing with Sharia law. Since you are a person who is dealing with Sharia law, then you are supposed to understand Arabic. You must have a good mastery of Arabic language. That is a condition number one, or quality number one. Quality number two is that you must have mastery of ulumul hadith. Ulumul hadith. This is the science of the knowledge of hadith. Yeah. So the scientific nature of hadith, you are supposed to understand much about the scientific nature of hadith. Remember, we have ulumul Quran, ulumul hadith. Now, for you to be a mujtahid, then you should be a person who has a good mastery of ulumul hadith. That is quality number two. Quality number three, you should be logical, and you should also have sound reasoning. Why am I saying this? Why am I saying that you should be having a sound reasoning? Sound reasoning meaning that your functionality of the brain should be perfect. The functionality of the brain should be perfect. You cannot, a mad person or a madman or a madwoman cannot stand to make Islamic legal rulings, because first of all, he does not have sound reasoning. There is a malfunctionality of the brain. So anything that is going to be done by this particular person, anything that is going to be observed by this individual, is first of all not going to be logical. And apart from it not being logical, then it is not of sound reasoning. So a mujtahid should be logical and should be of sound reasoning. Number four, quality number four, you'll be able to understand that a mujtahid should have a vast knowledge of on views of the Sahabas. The views and the opinions of the Sahabas you should be well acquainted with the views of the Sahabas, the opinions of the Sahabas, the knowledge of their opinions, how they interacted, how they brought about their views, how they agreed upon matters concerning Islam, how they agreed upon, how they unanimously came together to make legal rulings, and they gave out opinions on matters concerning Sharia and so on and so forth. So for you to be a mujtahid, you should be having a vast knowledge on the views of the Sahabas. Number four, quality number four, for you to be a mujtahid, you should have the knowledge of qiyas and its types of application. Because if you do not know anything about qiyas, you do not know how it is applied, then you are not going to give out correct legal rulings. You are going to mess up with matters concerning the religion, and it is going to be very, very bad. And then quality number six, for you to be a mujtahid, you should have knowledge of the society where you live in, and you should also have a public interest. What people like, what people do not like. For example, if you are a mujtahid and you live in Islam, for example, then you should be able to understand the Islam community, their interest, and you should have vast knowledge on that particular society or that community that you live in. Because if you do not know about their public interest, anything concerning their public interest, or you don't know anything about this particular knowledge that you're living in, then you're going also to mess up with their views and their opinions as far as these religious matters are concerned. And then quality number seven, for you to be a mujtahid, you should have fundamental principles of fiqh. You should have the knowledge of the fundamental principles of fiqh. You must be a fuqaha in Arabic, a person who knows much about fiqh. Then you'll be able to make this particular rule. You should know the fundamentals of principles of fiqh. You should be a fuqaha, yeah, for you to make this particular rule. Remember, fiqh deals much about Islamic jurisprudence. The fiqh deals much. It deals with. It deals with a lot. It deals with matters concerning Sharia and matters concerning fiqh, matters concerning Islamic Sharia are dealt upon in fiqh. So for you to be a mujtahid, you should know fiqh. And then quality number 8, meaning that you should have good mastery of Quran and Sunnah. How can you be a mujtahid and you don't know Quran? How can you be a mujtahid and you have problems in understanding the verses of the Holy Quran? You have not mastered Quran. You cannot be a mujtahid because you don't know Quran. For you to be a mujtahid, you should know Quran. You should have a good mastery of Arabic language, Quran, and so on and so forth. So Quran, you should know much about it. Sunnah and Hadith, you should have exhausted all those particular areas for you to be a mujtahid. And then quality number 10 is that you should know the general objectives of Sharia. One of the objectives of Sharia is to guide mankind to the correct way, just like the way Quran is guiding us to the correct way. Then the general objectives of Sharia is you should know all the general objectives of Sharia, yeah. And one of the objectives of Sharia is to guide people to the correct way. Another objective is just to show Muslims on the correct performance of their religious acts, because whatever we do, as far as ibadah is concerned, we do observe these particular acts of ibadah, and all these particular ibadah, these acts of ibadah, they are guided by Sharia. And this particular Sharia, we have fiqh in it. So that is what you need to understand about the quality of a mujtahid. That is quality number 9. And quality number 10, Roman X, you should be a person of good moral character. You cannot be a mujtahid and then you have unquestionable character. For example, you are claiming to be a mujtahid and you are always with those who chew gat or mira. You're always with those who are smoking. Wewe unavuta sigara, unatafuna mira, and then you try to claim that you are a mujtahid. You cannot be a mujtahid and you are a smoker, and at that particular time you are chewing, or you have unquestionable character. Your character, your moral character is questionable. You have something wrong with your behavior. You cannot be a mujtahid. So that is all about the qualities of a mujtahid. We look at fiqh. Now, what is fiqh? Fiqh simply means Islamic jurisprudence. You've been having these boys and girls in Duxi. Some of you have gone to Duxi. You've heard about fiqh. Now, fiqh is simply means the Islamic jurisprudence. Now we are going to look at historical development of fiqh. How did fiqh develop? Yeah, so we start saying that fiqh developed during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are going to look at how fiqh developed during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a nutshell. So I'll say that this period when fiqh developed, it is started when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam started receiving wahi up to the time of death. Remember, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued receiving wahi, and whenever he received wahi, first of all, he started receiving verses of the Holy Quran, and the first initial verses, the initial verses or the initial surahs of The Holy Quran, I mean the Meccan surahs, they were very, very short. We are going to look at this when we reach from 4. And they dealt much upon Tawheed. And this is about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first surahs, they dealt much about advising people or encouraging people on ibadah and advising them accordingly on keeping away from shirk or associating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with partners. Remember, the only sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive is shirk. So the first verses, they dealt much upon ibadah. They dealt much upon about tawheed, knowing who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. They also dealt about much about the sin. But later, as Islam expounded, the Islamic religion expounded, especially when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Hijrah. This was seen after Hijrah, where Islam gained momentum and it was joined by many Muslims from Medina. Then that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started gradually revealing verses concerning Sharia, matters of Salah, matters of Sawm, matters of Hajj, matters of fasting was seen in these particular verses, and that is when fiqh started from there. So fiqh was started during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Prophet was alive until the time of his death. So just to explain much about that, so that you can understand how it started. But what you need to understand is that most of fiqh was dealt much upon during the time of Hijrah, after Hijrah, especially after Hijrah, where more verses giving emphasis on rulings were revealed. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught the Muslim Ummah as the supreme judge, the basic principles of Islamic conduct as laid down by the Holy Quran, and these were included as parts of fiqh. Now, now we are going to look at that historical development of fiqh. It started during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then number 2, we are going to see fiqh developing during the time of the righteous Caliph. This is Khulafa ur-Rashidun. Remember that during the time of Khulafa ur-Rashidun also, fiqh continued developing. So this time, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged the companions to memorize the Holy Quran. By the time Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, the Sahabas had memorized bigger portions of the Holy Quran. Most of them had memorized Quran by heart. So after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahabas continued to use Quran and Hadith as the main sources of Sharia, as the main sources of preference. And as they continued using Quran and Hadith, then legal matters of fiqh started developing from there, because Hadith was there, Quran was still there, Sahabas were using the Hadith and both Hadith and Quran. So we had matters of fiqh there. Now, number three, fiqh developed during the time of the Abbasids. We are going to look at the Abbasids in Form 4. You'll understand much about the Abbasid when you look at the Abbasid dynasty in Form 4, but still you are in Form 3. We are not going to dwell much about that. But what you need to understand now is that fiqh developed during the time of the Abbasid, Ad-Dawlatul Abbasiyah. So this is the period that came after the decline of Umayyad dynasty. Remember, Umayyad dynasty still is a topic in Form 3. We are going to look at that as we continue. So these are Dawlatul Abbasiyah came after. Dawlatul Abbasiyah came after, just after Umayyad dynasty, covering the rise of the Abbasids from 750 to 950 CE. So fiqh developed during that time, during the time of the Abbasid. So during this period, fiqh took place as independent Islamic science. All the caliphs gave significant support to scientific, philosophical, and theological scholarly work, which had great influence in the Islamic thought. That is also an area, a time when fiqh developed. So now we're going to look at reasons that led to the establishment of schools of thought, the madhabs. What you need to understand, boys and girls, is that fiqh developed during two times. During the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and during the time, no, three times, sorry, during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then during the time of the Sahabas, and during the time of the Abbasid. Now we're going to look at the reasons that led to the establishment of the madhabs. Of madhabs, these are known as schools of thought. Number one, the need to have Muslim scholars to rely on matters of Sharia. So some Muslims relied on Ahlul Hadith, people of Hadith, while others relied on Ahlul Ra'ayi, people of opinion. So the need that Muslim scholars needed to rely on matters of Sharia, because we had some Muslim scholars relying on people of Hadith for fiqh, while others were relying on people of opinion. So there are those who sat down and decided, no, we need to have our, we have to rely on Sharia rather than relying on people of Hadith, or rather than relying on people of opinion. We need to rely on people of Hadith, Sharia. So that is when schools of thought came about. And then number two, the need to solve differences that arose in the interpretation and understanding of the verses of the Holy Quran. Remember, the understanding and interpretation of the Holy Quran, people understood Quran, the verses of the Holy Quran differently, and they came up with different opinions. So the Muslim scholars had the need to resolve differences. As people understood Quran differently and interpreted Quran differently, then there was need to resolve the differences that were coming about in the interpretation of these particular verses of the Holy Quran. And then that is number two. Number three, emergence of new situations that had not existed during the earlier times. These led to the differences in opinions among the Sahabas. Sahabas differed in opinions because of the new situations which were happening, and these particular situations were not there during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These situations were not even there during the time of during the earlier times of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a reason that led to the establishment of madhab. Number four, the Muslim empire expanded. Remember, Muslims were becoming many after the death of Prophet Muhammad, and then after the Khulafa ur-Rashidun, Muslims were becoming many. Then because of the Muslim empire becoming vast, becoming bigger and bigger, and expanding to far areas, which had unique problems that required solutions based on their geographical positions and cultural background. Remember, people have different cultures, people are coming from different diversity, and we have different cultures and we have different geographical positions. Then because of the geographical positions and different cultural backgrounds, then there was need to come with madhabs. And the last one, the reason number five, is the need to remove differences that came about in the interpretation of Hadith and Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometimes the Sunnah and Hadith of Prophet Muhammad would not be interpreted well. So that is the reason why we had schools of thought. Now we had the madhabs, the establishment of madhabs, the schools of thought. Now, as I wind up the lesson, now we are going to look at the 5 imams of fiqh. I taught you about the imams, the collectors of hadith. Now we also have imams of fiqh. The Sihahu Sita, those are the collectors of hadith. Now here we are going to look at the 5 imams of fiqh. 5 imams of fiqh. Number 1 is Imam Abu Hanifa, is considered as Imam of fiqh. And then number 2, we have Imam Malik bin Anas. And then number 3, we have Imam Shafi. And then we have Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. And number 5, we have Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. Ja'far as-Siddiq or Ja'far as-Sadiq, as-Siddiq, as-Sadiq, it means the same thing. So we have Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik bin Anas, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, and Imam Ja'far as-Siddiq. Boys and girls, that is the end of the lesson of IRE today. I believe that you have the notes. Some of you have already written, but those who have not written, you continue writing. So next time for IRE lesson when I come, you're going to look at life history of these particular imams, one by one. So we are going to look at the biographies of these particular imams during the next lesson of IRE. I believe that you have understood. If there is any question concerning that area that I have lectured, you can ask. If there is no question, then we call it off until another time, inshallah.